Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving straight into a really fascinating, almost bizarre contradiction going on inside the American economy right now. I mean, you walk down the street and everything looks perfectly normal, right? Restaurants are bustling, stores are crowded, but behind closed doors, America's biggest CEOs are actually sounding the alarm. They're urgently warning Wall Street about a consumer base that is under immense unseen pressure. So let's dig into their data and figure out what exactly is happening behind the scenes. So here is the core mystery, the billion-dollar question that Wall Street is obsessing over today. Are Americans actually running out of money, or are they just running out of room to keep spending the way they used to? And look, this isn't just a matter of semantics, because the answer to this very specific question is going to largely dictate what happens to the entire U.S. economy next. You see, there's a massive, absolutely crucial difference between a total spending collapse and a strategic behavioral shift. If the American consumer were truly collapsing, we'd expect spending to just fall off a cliff. But that's not what the data is showing us at all. Instead, everyday people are making highly calculated choices about how they allocate their family budgets. They aren't stopping their spending, they're just spending differently. And believe me, corporate America is watching this shift like a hawk. Okay, let's move to section 1, the savings squeeze. The pressure on the American household. Right now, the U.S. personal savings rate is hovering at just 3.6%. To put that into perspective for an everyday family, it means households aren't necessarily dead broke, but the amount of income that can actually stash away is getting incredibly tight. Their financial cushion for those nasty, unexpected expenses, a surprise medical bill, a blown transmission, or a random insurance hike, that cushion is wearing incredibly thin. And when that safety net shrinks, cutting back on discretionary stuff becomes a whole lot easier. Now immediately bump that super thin savings rate up against the headline inflation figure of 3.8%. What we have here is a shrinking safety net colliding head-on with elevated prices across the board. Because let's be real, you and I don't experience inflation as one giant, scary macroeconomic number. Sure, core inflation might sit at 2.8% on paper, but the reality hits us right at the checkout counter. We're talking restaurant prices bumping up roughly 0.7%, groceries at 0.5%. Individually, maybe those increases don't sound enormous, but when families get hit with dozens of these small, totally unavoidable price bumps every single week for years, it literally erodes their savings and absolutely forces a change in behavior. Section 2, the corporate margin battle, how businesses are reacting to the squeeze. Even sectors we consider totally inelastic, like basic food, are feeling the heat. Take Kraft Heinz. They've just committed an enormous $600 million for one reason, to defend their volume. Because suddenly, price-sensitive shoppers are actively ditching them for cheaper private label brands, hunting for promotions, or honestly, just buying smaller quantities. I mean, how do you keep folks buying your specific brand of ketchup when they're counting every single penny? Well, apparently, that is a $600 million question. Meanwhile, the fast food industry is facing a nearly identical dilemma. McDonald's is caught in this brutal, fierce balancing act between two conflicting goals. Do we protect our margins, or do we protect our customers? If they hike prices aggressively to cover their own rising costs, their budget-conscious customers are just going to stay home and cook. But if they freeze prices to keep that customer base loyal, their profit margins take a massive hit. It is just a relentless tug-of-war right now. And then you see the ultimate domino effect when we look at large purchases. Take Whirlpool, for example. Look, if your refrigerator breaks down, that's an emergency. But upgrading a perfectly fine washing machine, people are looking at their thinning savings accounts and saying, you know what? We'll wait another year. This economic uncertainty makes consumers postpone big-ticket items, which actually drove Whirlpool's stock down to levels reminiscent of the 2008 financial crisis. They aren't swearing off spending forever. They're just holding off. Which brings us to section 3, the value shift, the redistribution of spending. But here is where it gets really interesting. Despite all the corporate panic we just looked at, Walmart recently reported their U.S. comparable sales grew by about 4.6%. You have to ask, if consumers are so stressed out, why in the world is Walmart growing? It's simple, because their entire business model is built around value. It completely proves that when consumers become hyper price sensitive, value-based retailers don't just survive, they can actually boom. So let's piece this whole puzzle together. People might still grab fast food, but maybe they're strictly using app promotions at McDonald's now. They still need a pantry full of groceries, but they're trading down from Kraft Heinz to a store brand. They might really want a shiny new appliance from Whirlpool, but they decide to postpone it. And they're taking those saved dollars straight over to Walmart because they are desperately seeking value.
They are effectively shifting their hard-earned money away from premium convenience and straight toward necessities. Now, we absolutely have to talk about the invisible engine keeping so much of this spending afloat, and that is credit. It acts like a temporary bridge when someone's income falls short, which frankly makes the consumer look a lot healthier on paper than they actually are. But borrowing is definitely not free. That invisible crutch masks a ton of household stress, which is exactly why banks and credit data companies are sweating right now, obsessively watching metrics like credit utilization and delinquencies. And that drops us right into a vicious cycle. Step 1, the consumer really feels the pinch of high costs. Step 2, companies who are facing their own higher labor and transport costs decide to change their prices. Step 3, the consumers respond by cutting back even more or shifting to value brands. And the whole thing just repeats. Companies are constantly forced to choose between raising prices, slashing their own costs, or just swallowing lower margins. All right, Section 4, 6 signals to watch, navigating the new consumer landscape. As we try to reach a real verdict on the American economy, Wall Street is rigorously tracking 6 very specific metrics to see exactly how long this balancing act can hold up. 1, consumer spending. Can the economy keep absorbing this pressure? 2, savings. Is that financial cushion still deflating? 3, credit. Are borrowing and delinquency trends spiking? 4, retail sales. What are people actually putting in their carts? 5, corporate earnings. What are executives secretly admitting on their calls? And 6, inflation. Are prices staying high while our incomes stagnate? Watching these 6 signals together tells a much, much more accurate story than just panicking over a single terrifying headline. So the bottom line is this. The American consumer is becoming incredibly hyper-selective. Don't get me wrong, millions are still financially healthy. They've got jobs, they've got strong incomes, but their margin for error is shrinking drastically, and it's turning them into ruthless buyers who demand maximum value for every single dollar. Companies can literally no longer assume you'll just blindly accept a price hike. They actually have to fight for your wallet now. I'm going to leave you with this one lingering question to really chew on. How much longer can American consumers keep absorbing these higher prices? Because if they finally reach their absolute breaking limit, the impact isn't just going to stop at the grocery store checkout counter. It's going to ripple out through McDonald's, through Walmart, through the major banks, and eventually through the entire U.S. economy. Keep your eyes locked on these trends, folks, because right now, the American consumer is without a doubt the most important story in the financial world. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep learning.